So today we're joined by JoBeth. JoBeth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is JoBeth Polley. I just recently got remarried, and so my name has changed. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. It's very exciting. So, my reason I'm here is I love to speak and give hope and light to people who are going through really hard things. And so I experienced something that was very tragic and hard, and I'd like to come share my story and do whatever I can to show that there's a light at the end of the tunnel no matter what we're going through. So, little just real quick my story before we get into get in deep to all this stuff. I got married when I was 20, had a good marriage, everything was wonderful. A couple years into the marriage, we wanted to start trying to have a family and encountered infertility, which I think is probably something that maybe some of the listeners have experienced before and understand
Yeah,
like the depths of that grief
yeah,
and how hard that is when you've always wanted to be a mom and you as a woman you think about the pregnancy and the clothes, the baby clothes and the names and you have this like fantasy of what motherhood is going to be like for you. And so we went through that struggle for about 2 years. And then ultimately was just we had exhausted all resources and realized that that was not going to be a path that we were able to pursue any longer. And so we gave up on trying to get pregnant and started to pursue adoption. And so from there, we adopted our 2 kiddos. And for about 5 years, everything was really, really wonderful. Things felt very complete. We were a family. Everything that we had dreamed of was, right there. We had bought a farm, we just built our dream home. Like everything was just like complete is the best word for it. It felt good. Everything felt very wholesome. And then about a year after we built our home, my husband's personality started to change. And that was really odd. He became more irritable and just kind of almost like picking fights and stuff that was not his character, was not who
hmm
he was, and was very odd. And then a couple weeks after, like I was kind of almost at a breaking point, he started getting really bad headaches. And that day we went to the urgent care here in the United States. And within an hour, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a terminal brain cancer. And we were kind of in this dark room because his head was hurting so bad he wanted the lights out. We were in this dark room. Doctor came in, said, it's a very aggressive form of brain cancer. There is no treatment that works for it, and gave us a pamphlet that on there said that he had 12 to 16 months to live, and they sent us home. And the world became completely black. It was there was no future at that point. Obviously, lots of confusion and like, what do we do? And like, I'm a very optimistic person. So I was like, oh, he'll be the one that beats this. Like, I'll find the right doctors. Our faith is very important to us. And so we believed that God would have his hand in this and that we would, ultimately he would survive. Like, it was very scary, but I was very optimistic. And then he was sick for about a year. And ultimately, he ended up passing away. And so from there, I started to rebuild my life. And I'm currently doing that and helping other women do that. And I walk through deep grief with people, not just in widowhood, but with child loss and divorce and health issues and everything else that causes grief. And that's what led me here. And I love coming on to shows like yours that are speaking to women and letting them know that there is a chapter that comes after deep grief.
yeah, yeah. We've had some other women who've been through some huge losses as well. Yeah, it's like a really tough thing to go through. Uh, yeah, I haven't been through a loss like that, so I haven't experienced it. I can't imagine how awful it must be for you. But to have that positivity and to rebuild your life and come back from it, that's where the strength is.
Yeah.
So what sort of steps did you take to start trying to rebuild your life?
Well, I'm very much like I feel like if you have a plan to move forward and you have the things that it takes to do those things, that anything is possible. I knew I had proof, social proof that there were women who survived being widowed, and some people barely survived, some people did okay, and some people really thrived in that season of life. And I really made a commitment that I was going to be somebody who thrived in it. The year leading up to his death was so tragic and so painful that I wanted, as soon as he was gone, I wanted to try to bring some kind of brightness back to my life, because even though, like, I know a lot of people who suffer for years, and we just had a year, but it was just so long and torturous that I was just like, once I realized that he was going to pass away, I was like, I have to figure out how to do this. So what did that look like for me? I've always looked at my life as like a full circle, like almost like a pie chart. Like, there's a whole bunch of different components that make up who I am and what makes me a complete person who feels good about hitting all these different areas. For me, that was my faith. It was the number one most important thing for me, staying connected, staying in the Word, and making sure that that was something that I was going to leave with. My physical health was super important. We see a lot of times when women are in deep grief, they neglect their mental health and their physical health. And I knew that no matter how hard things were for me mentally, I could control my physical health. And so that looked like seeing a massage therapist. I went to a chiropractor that did something called craniosacral therapy, which is, you'll have to look it up, but
I've
it's
heard of it.
it's amazing. It's kind of for me as a normal person, hard for me to describe. Oh, like, look it up, but it's just a very relaxing, like, calms your nervous system. So I did that, but I also worked out a lot. I also made sure I was eating appropriately. For some people, that's not overeating. For me, it was like making sure I did eat, because it was just like when you have catastrophic loss like that, food becomes very irrelevant to a
Yeah.
lot of people. It's like, I don't want to eat. I don't feel like eating. I'm not hungry. For me, a lot of times it felt like a selfish thing to do because my husband wasn't able to eat sometimes. And I was like, I felt like I should suffer alongside of him. And
Yeah.
so there was that whole thing. But being just intentional, going to counseling. I had a counselor that was also a coach who had also lost her husband in her 30s, and just clinging to her and letting her guide us through it, but also prioritizing sleep and rest, because like I kind of like was able to identify, like, these are problems. If I'm not sleeping, not eating, not working out, not taking care of my mental health and my spirituality, like, this is going to be a problem. And so really dialing those things in and being like, I'm going to be intentional about this, and also trying to do things that are fun. And let me say, nothing is fun when you're grieving. Like, that doesn't even exist. But I knew there were things like being out in the sun. Like, I had bought a Jeep, but I was like, okay, we take the top off the Jeep and go get a drink or something. And we can, things that I knew were probably fun that I just couldn't like feel. Like, I made sure that I kept doing those things. My therapist kept saying, like, someday you're going to feel joy again. Someday you're going to feel peace again. Someday you're going to laugh again. And I was just like, okay, like, I don't think so. And I remember the first time that I felt joy after he had passed away, I was like, what was that? Like, what was that? It was like, it caught me off guard. And I was like, oh, that felt good. And I was like, wait, I'm not supposed to be feeling good. Like, that's not, I mean, this is months after, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be feeling that way. So yeah, just being really intentional, believing. That's a huge thing too, was I believed that I was going to be okay again, not thrive again. I just believed at first that I was just going to be okay again. And
Yeah.
so I believed that. I borrowed somebody's belief. I didn't know that I felt like I would always be broken. And so my therapist, like I said, who had lost her husband, I trusted her. I'm like, okay, if you say that I'm going to be okay someday, like, I'm just going to borrow that belief until I can have it for myself. And, that's what I want to do every day when I wake up, is get to be somebody's belief until they can find it themselves.
Yeah. I'm a counselor, and that's one of the things that I tell people as well. It's all the things about looking after yourself and doing things even if you don't think that it's going to help, because it ultimately does. And it's not about one day it just all changes. It's about putting the small things in bit by bit, and then eventually all those little things add up and it does change your life.
Yeah, it does. And just staying consistent is so important. I think it's important to listen to your body, and you would agree with this. Like, you need to listen to your body, but also when you're in deep grief, your body may be saying, don't get out of bed today.
Yeah,
And so we have to have some discernment, some like, okay, like, is my body saying it's probably okay to sleep in today and sleep, maybe an hour or two later than normal? Okay, I'm going to do that. Is my body telling me that I need to sleep all day, that that's what it needs? Probably not, right? And
yeah,
so just listening to it and pulling back when you need to, but also really pushing and doing the things that you don't want to. Like, some days it was hard to go to therapy.
yeah,
Most days it was hard to work out.
yeah,
It was hard for me to pull back and to focus on healing instead of being busy. That's something a lot of people do, as you know, like, if something bad happens to me, I'm just going to work more. I'm going to work longer hours. I'm going to pick up a couple extra projects to do.
yeah,
I'm going to clean the house, organize the house, mess the house up, clean the house, organize the house again, like move the
mm,
furniture, like avoiding that and or doing that and avoiding your grief. And so being focused on like, okay, like I know that I want to pick up another job, right? I know that probably during that time I need to like focus on healing or just focus on being still and being like, okay, I feel really terrible right now, and I'm just going to lean into that.
yeah. I think it's sometimes counterproductive if you fight how you're feeling, because then you're just fighting your emotions as well as feeling them.
Yeah, do you want to deal with this now or later? Like, that's it's not, do I want to deal with this or not? It's a matter of now or later. And
Yeah,
I understood that, and so I knew that I wanted to deal with it now. Being in deep grief was something I never wanted to. Nobody wants to experience it. But once I was in it, I was like, I want to be here for the shortest amount of time as possible. And I told my therapist, I was like, after he passed away, because he was sick for a year. So there was this whole year leading up to it that I knew what was coming. Doctors were telling us time after time, like, he will not survive. We're just giving him more time. And more time was going to be weeks or months. And so I had this like time leading up to it that I was preparing for it. But I told my therapist when he passed, I was like, I want to expedite my grieving process. And she was like, "You can't do that." And I was like, "Watch me. Like, watch me do it." And it wasn't out of dishonor for my husband. It wasn't out of like, a heightened sense of self, like, that I was better than anybody. It was just that being in that was so painful that I wanted out. I didn't want to cry all day, every day. I didn't want to, because I still had kids. I had
yeah,
kids to raise. We had a construction company, we had a farm. I was working for the University of Arkansas at the time. Like, I was like, it's gonna cost me more to drag this out than it is if I just buckle down and do it. And so what did that look like? I felt everything. I
yeah,
knew that if I ignored, it was gonna take me longer. And I was like, "Oh, is that sadness?" And be like, okay, yeah, it is. And letting myself cry, listen to sad music, look at pictures, like watch videos of him and stuff. Like, I wanted to go all in. And I think for most people's standards probably did expedite it just because I went all in to the point that my counselor was like, she told me I needed to watch TV. And I was like, I don't watch TV. I'm still not 100% sure how to turn our TV on. But she was like, you need to watch TV. Like, you need to like laugh and just like get out of yourself for a second and go somewhere else. And
yeah.
so she prescribed TV and a funny television show so that I could do that because I was so committed to going through it as quickly and efficiently as possible.
The thing with emotion, though, is that sometimes it can come out in a different way. Like, and it sounds ridiculous. Like, if you're really angry or if you're really sad, if you can laugh, that's still releasing your emotions.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, and
But
it
it's
it
just,
was
it's
really healing.
changing it. Yeah,
Yeah, like, yeah, happiness is an emotion, right?
yeah,
Like, being, thinking something fun is a release of that emotion, and I think that was part of her point was to, like,
yeah.
get me to where I would laugh or at least be like, "That's funny," get to that point.
Hmm.
But yeah, for sure, it was a wise suggestion.
So, did you feel guilty when you were laughing, or if you felt happy during that
Mhm.
time?
Yeah, for sure. It was like probably the most guilt I had was when he was really sick and it was like he's dying and I'm anything else. Anything other than being there with him, like suffering
Yeah.
with him, was guilt. And then after he passed, I didn't have as much. It wasn't so much that I had guilt about feeling those emotions. It was like, maybe I'm not supposed to. Like, maybe I'm not supposed to feel any positive emotion. And also just like not even knowing how to access it. It was unavailable. Like, it wasn't like I'm going to try to be happy. Even when I made a roadmap for my own success in this situation, it was still just like a survival thing. It wasn't necessarily to be happy again. It was just
Yeah.
get through the day, get through the week, the month, the year, like keep moving forward.
Yeah. So how did it start to change? When did it start changing?
Probably 2 or 3 months after he passed away, I started having days where I wouldn't cry, and I started to have, but that's really soon. So, like, there's maybe people that are like 5, 6 years down the road, and they're like 3 months, but you have to remember that, like, this was an intentional process. Like, I treated it like a job. And so there was just these times of, just knowing that it was okay. Like, this was what I was trying to do in the first place, and just embracing it as part of the journey as well. But yeah, it was really quick for me. Probably the most healing time, though, for me was he was in hospice for a month, and I basically sit there next to him for a month in a dark room while he died. And it was really a time of me setting there because he didn't really want me touching him and stuff. Like, I would sometimes sleep with him at night in the bed with him, but he was just pretty uncomfortable. Like, the beds and stuff, like, kind of like make it uncomfortable for them when somebody gets in it because they're like air up beds, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when somebody gets in it or something, like, so I couldn't really be close to him that much. But I got to sit there and really process what my life was going to be, because once you check into hospice, you know that, like, there's no hope at that point, that the life is, coming to an end. And so that was a really transformative month for me. That was also, I think, part of expediting this process of getting better, is because I knew what was coming and I had time. I think that's one thing when people lose somebody quickly and tragically, is they don't have time to actually think about how they're going to move forward.
Yeah. I suppose one of the parts of the grieving process is thinking about why it happened and like why me and that kind of thing. Did you have that? Was that part of it?
Yeah, one thing that was really hard for me was understanding why my kids got to have him for 5 years and then he was taken. That was hard for me. But I also realized, and I think everybody has different opinions about this, of course, but like, I never really wanted to ask why, because there's not going to be an answer. Like, it's not like somebody's going to be like, oh, hey, here's a letter. Here's exactly why he died. And it makes total sense now and I'm fine. Knowing why was not going to bring him back. It wasn't going to make anything better. So legit, if somebody would have came to me and been like, here's your message on why he was taken, it wouldn't have changed anything. I
No.
was still facing so I didn't even let myself go there. I think a lot of it was just this like shock of like, are you kidding me? This is my life now. Like, we had such big dreams and plans and responsibility. I mean, like I said, we had a construction company, we had a farm, a cattle farm. We have a 120-acre cattle farm, which is not huge, but it is for a single mom.
I was going to say I've got no concept of that.
Well, I mean, it's not it so the amount of daily work, not a big deal. It's the nature of the work. It's heavy, it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
It requires equipment. I didn't know how to drive a tractor. So I was like, okay, I don't even know how to drive a tractor, and now I'm responsible for this farm. So I had to learn how to drive a tractor.
Okay. I was going to say, did you learn?
hmm I did. And it honestly was one of the most empowering things. And like, listen, women here in the United States in the South, probably a lot of them know how to drive a tractor. Not a big deal. I just didn't. And so it was a very empowering experience for me. Like, oh, look what I'm doing. I'm
Hmm.
out on the tractor taking care of the cows.
Hmm.
Like, it was a very empowering experience for me. But there was just, I learned as I got weeks and months into it that there was so much that I could not do by myself.
Okay.
And then I got to thinking about it. I was like, well, My husband didn't do it by himself either. Like when you have a farm, normally there's multiple people that come, friends and family that come to help when you do things because it is physically impossible to pen a bunch of cows with one person. So like leaning into the like I actually do need help. But yeah, I mean, it was very overwhelming, but also very empowering once I did learn how to do some things and be like, okay, like I'm a big girl. I can learn how to do some of this stuff.
So how did you find the help that you needed?
My dad farms. The area that we live in, like literally, if I would have put a message out on Facebook that was like, can somebody please help me learn how to drive the tractor? Probably would have had 100 people here trying to teach me how to drive a tractor. And so just live in a very community focused location. I mean, just people, anybody who knew me felt so bad for me. Like they were like, how is she going to do this? Like she has these 2 kids and this farm and so I think anybody would have been willing to help me, but my dad was the one. And I would be like FaceTiming him and be like, it's not starting. I think I have everything in the right place, but it's still not starting. Like, I don't know what to do. And then this is funny. So, when you bring the cows feed, they all stare at you because they're like, oh, because in the winter we have to feed hay.
Huh?
And so the cows are like, they're excited to see you because they're ready to eat. And I was so, like when you first learn to drive a car, how you're just like, it's rough and you're kind of back and forth and you brake too hard and then you excel
You
too
stall.
fast and it's rough, right? Well, like a tractor is way worse than that because it's like you have more weight and everything. And so anyways. So I felt so judged by the cows. I was like, they're looking at me and they're thinking this lady is such a joke. Is this really who's taking care of us now? Because I know I'd be in the tractor and it would be so inconsistent in the movements and the everything. And I was just like, oh, girls, hang with me. I'm gonna I'm gonna get this figured out and then be like, gosh, I hope the neighbors aren't watching. I hope they're not at home watching me do this because it was humbling but also very empowering. And I'm remarried now, and so my husband helps me with a lot of it, but I still like to do it sometimes because in the back of my mind I'm like I could just because I lost one husband doesn't mean I won't lose another one, and I don't ever want to be back in a situation where um I have no idea how to do anything. Like I'm
Yeah,
going to keep empowering myself, keep adding skills so that if I do end up in a situation where I have to take care of everything by myself again, I at least know some stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds funny about the cows. I had visions of like sort of maybe trying to avoid knocking them over and stuff like that, like plowing into them.
Well, they typically move.
Yeah.
They'll get out of the way, but you do have to pay attention. Like you can't yeah, because you have like a bale of hay that's like 6 feet tall and round on the front of the tractor. And so this is funny talking to you about this because like it's like common knowledge for people that are here in our area, but not
Hmm.
not to probably people in your area so much.
No, I mean we do have farms up further up north, but it's not not the lifestyle that I'm used to. So
Yeah. I wish
yeah.
I could like switch to a video and show people what it looks like, but I can't do that. But yeah, it's different. But it was like I said, it was an empowering
I was gonna
experience.
say if you've got some pictures, I could insert them into the video so they
Yeah,
can
okay,
see.
yeah, I'll
Yeah,
um I'll send you some when we're done.
a video clip, I can put that in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll see what I have.
yeah, sounds good. So what else have you learned other than driving a tractor?
So probably one of the biggest things that I was worried about, like I, for no explained reason, have always been scared at night. Like from the time I was born, nothing ever happened to me. There was never a reason to be scared. I was just always scared at night. And even when I was married, like I never like if my husband was gone for the weekend or for the night doing something, like I would go stay like with my parents. Like I was not going to stay home by myself. It terrified me. And so when I was going through the list of all the things I was going to have to learn to do, I was like, I'm gonna have to learn how to stay by myself at night. Like, and we live in a rural area. If you hollered at your neighbor, they're not gonna hear you.
Yeah.
Like, like we have neighbors that are fairly close, but like it's not like you can go next door. Like that doesn't happen. And so it was terrifying to me that I was like, I don't know. I can learn how to drive a tractor. I feel like I can run a construction company. I feel like I can raise our kids. I don't know that I can stay by myself at night. That was really scary. And so I just, you know, eventually my fear just kind of left me, but that was one of the biggest things that I was like, I don't know if I can do that. And so I did all the things to make myself sleep at night. So we have a security gate where people can't just drive in to our place. I have a security system, I have security cameras. I have a gun, and I'm just like, for the first few months, me and the kids would go into my bedroom. We'd shut and lock the door in my bedroom. And I was just like, come what may. I've got, it's just going to have to be what it is at this point.
Yeah.
And it just kind of was like a piece and a release of that fear.
Uh-huh.
Those are probably the tractor and staying the night by myself. And probably a lot of women are like, I stay the night by myself every night. And that's great. Good for you. But that was not something I was comfortable with. And eventually I got to where it was okay. And that was another thing that's like, okay, I can do this. Like I had these little bouts of success that really pushed me to be like, okay, I can do something else too.
Yeah. I'm curious about the gun because we don't have guns here.
Like nobody has one?
Oh,
Okay.
well, some of the farmers might have some. I think you're allowed like a low caliber one or something, but we don't tend to have them for security, no.
Well,
Not
okay,
allowed them, it's
yeah.
against the law.
Okay, well, it's definitely not against the law here.
Hmm.
Everybody has them,
Hmm.
and probably more so in the South than
Yeah.
anywhere else. Like it's just we have guns. You can open carry even here. Like you can have it on your hip, like where people can see it. You can conceal carry where nobody can see it. Like it's just I don't know. It's not even something that I think about. Everybody has them.
Did you learn to use it though? Because I think that's what my worry would be. Like
Yeah, I
if
know
I
how to
was
use it.
in a confrontation and I had to use a gun, I'd be like, oh, I'd probably end up shooting myself.
Yeah, so I have to tell this story. It's so embarrassing, but I have to tell it because you're asking about this. So there was one night when I don't know how, but our alarm system went off and I came out of like I mean screaming. I come out of my bedroom and the door going out into our garage is open, which was terrifying. Like
Hmm.
so terrifying. So I grabbed the gun, but I remembered that I hadn't put the clip. So I don't know what you know about guns, but so you have the gun that's like this, and there's a clip with the
Yeah.
bullets that goes in the bottom. Well, I had the clip in it, but not pushed in it. So like for safety reasons, so if like one of the kids grabbed it, the clip would fall out, which it was up
Yeah.
where they couldn't reach it, and like they
Yeah. Yeah.
know gun safety and stuff. But I forgot that. So when I was, middle of the night, alarm screaming, I just grab it off the top of my shelf, and when I did, the clip fell out, and it even bounced in front of me, but I was so like out of it that I didn't realize that it like what had fallen out, and it was dark. I just thought I'd knocked something off my shelf. And so I go through my house with this gun and no clip in it, no bullets. And I walk through and I like turn the alarm off, walk through the house, make sure everything's fine. And then I'm like, there was no bullets in that gun. Like, I was like, and then I was like, I went to like, you're a moron. That was my first thought to, my gosh, what a wonderful experience. I got to have this experience and there was nobody in our house. I don't know how the door opened. I think like just like a suction thing popped it open somehow with the air. But I was like, this was like such a great trial run because if this ever happens again, I have this experience of dropping the clip and I won't make this mistake again. And
Yeah.
so somebody was like, I would not tell people that. And I was like, it was a great experience. I screwed up and there was nothing at risk.
Yeah.
Like, so now I'm good. Like, I will
Yeah.
never do that again. But I felt so I was just like, oh gosh, you're the one protecting your children. You can't even make sure the clip's in the gun.
Well, yeah, I don't know how I would cope with having a gun and having to shoot it. I think I'm a terrible aim.
Well, you didn't grow up with them. You didn't, it wasn't something that you around here, it's normal. Like
Uh,
hunting is normal.
yeah.
Growing up, deer hunting is very popular around here and people kill the deer and eat them. And so being around guns we were very cautious and we pay attention, but it's not like, oh my gosh, there's a gun. It's like you're
Yeah.
at the store and you see people with guns.
Yeah. Well, my son's in the army, so he uses them quite well. I don't know how often, but he bought my husband. something legal that you're allowed to have. And I was just like, oh my God, there's a gun in my kitchen. It was, I don't know, like on fire or something. I was so
Well, I
scared of
mean,
it.
yeah, because it could kill you. Like, I think you
Well, I
should
don't
be
think this
scared of it.
could. It couldn't kill. No, it wasn't powerful enough to probably kill a rabbit or anything.
Okay, my gosh. So what's the
But I
point?
was still terrified of it. Because we're just not used to it here.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's just the difference in where you live and how comfortable you are with them. Like, I wouldn't say I'm super comfortable with mine, but like, we'll take it out every once in a while and shoot targets and stuff. And it's just a way of life here. Everybody has one. It's not
Yeah,
like, and it's not even that like we buy them. I don't know. It's a hobby for a lot of
yeah,
people to buy them and go shoot and to have a
yeah.
collection, and it's a thing.
Well, I've heard that you can just buy bullets at the supermarket and stuff like that
Yeah.
as well. That's like bizarre to me.
I've never even thought about it. Like, it's just
No,
like,
it's just
yeah,
normal for
it's
you.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so you had those. Did you have any other funny experiences? I'm intrigued by your
Oh,
learning stuff and
yeah. Let me think. Not funny, but one thing that like was just like, and I think a lot of women experience this, but it's like when you're a team, when you're a team and you're doing a lot of things, like one person handles a lot of stuff and the other person handles a lot of stuff.
yeah,
And then when they're gone, you realize that you know absolutely nothing about
the
the
other
things that your
things.
partner was handling.
Yeah.
And so, that's something that we're doing differently this time around in this marriage is like we are a team that keeps each other completely informed because it's like, and you may have seen like the funny TikToks. It's kind of morbid, but it's hilarious. It's these women that are like their husbands are like in the casket and they have like their phone laying in the casket and they're like, "Hey, what's the password to our Verizon account?" They're like asking this question, "Hey, how do you get up into the," like there's like all these questions that they're like asking their husbands and they're dead, like, and it's so funny because the questions they're asking are things that like we're really curious, like we really don't know. Like
Hmm.
there we had vehicles, I had no idea where the keys were to them. Like cuz we had
Yeah.
construction stuff. So it's like, where's the key to this? I don't know. Where's the title to this? I don't know. Like what's, just it was an absolute cluster trying to figure out how to access things, and like people were just asking me questions like probably 50 a day, and I was like,
I don't know.
I don't know. The amount of times I said I don't know, a million. I just didn't know. Like I took care of my things, he
Hmm.
took care of his things, and it worked really well
Yeah.
until he passed away. And because he had brain cancer, he was never in right state to figure it out before he passed away. So
Yeah.
even though it wasn't like a urgent tragic death, it was like he wasn't with me really from the time he got his diagnosis. He was already mentally like compromised to an
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you couldn't really plan for anything or
I had plans because the thing is when you have at that time we had our farm here, but we also had four other farms that he was
my
managing.
goodness.
We didn't own them, we leased them, but we still had was responsible for the property and the cattle that was on it.
Hmm.
And, there was just it was a lot to try to take care of, but I had a lot of help too. So, and that's the thing, if there's people, I think maybe it's human nature, maybe it's more females, but we have this idea of like we can do it ourselves. Like I can do it by myself. And I had that attitude too, and I still do to an extent, but there are things in life that happen, like a death or some kind of disaster, where you really have to lean on those people that are willing to help you. And I did that. I didn't have a choice because I had a job and taking care of my husband was a full-time job and taking care of my kids was a full-time job. And
Yeah.
I couldn't do all of them. So I really had to lean on the people that were there to help me. And so if there's people listening that are like in that season of like, I need help, but I'm not going to ask for help, like now's the time. Swallow your pride, admit that you need help. It's going to make things so much easier. And the thing is when tragedy strikes, for the most part, there are people who are like, they want to do something. Their hearts
Yeah.
are broken too. And
Yeah.
it would make them feel so much better if you would be like, yes, you can bring me dinner. Yes, you can come help me work cows. Whatever your thing is, like you can come help me. And you're really doing them a favor
Yeah.
by letting them help you because it makes them feel better, like they
Yeah.
have done something. And so if people are willing to help, let them. Like, it's going to make your life easier, make them feel better. And at the end, you're going to have something done. Even if it was dinner, you're going to have
Mhm.
something done that was on your plate that
Mhm.
you can, you know, not have to worry about.
So do you still have all the farms and all that
No,
other responsibility?
no, we live on the 120 acres. So we live here and have these cows. I got rid of everything else. Just wasn't taking care of the farms was a full-time job. And so we had people hired that did that, but as he got sick, we started letting some people go and kind of like downsized really slowly on the business until it went from like being something that was like this big to being like something that was like this big. And so just scaled down majorly.
And did that hit you financially then? Did you struggle with that side of things?
We were very fortunate and smart, and we had life insurance. And so we both had good policies, and I was able to utilize that so that we didn't hurt financially. Otherwise, yeah, it would have wrecked us.
Mhm.
Like people who is life insurance a thing
Yeah, yeah,
with you guys? Yeah. So like people a lot of times would be like, "You're so lucky you had life insurance." I'm like, "Girl, it ain't luck."
yeah. You
Like
put it in place.
we sat down and made a financial decision about 8 years ago that we were going to protect each other because here's what we were looking at. If something happened to him, it was going to take away 80% of our income. Okay. That was going to be tragic. And when we lost 80% of our income, we would have had to have sold the farm and our house. And I probably would have had to have sold my car and we would have had to, like, move and downsize our entire life. Okay. If he lost me, he was going to have to hire somebody to be mom because
Yeah.
he had this career that was financially supporting everything, but he couldn't have taken the kids to school or he couldn't have homeschooled them, or he wouldn't have homeschooled them. But, like, that wasn't going to happen. So he's going to have somebody take them to school. He was going to have somebody cook, clean,
Mhm.
do laundry, keep his books for his company. Like, and like, then he would also have to have somebody who probably helped him manage holidays,
Yeah.
like Christmas, he was going to have so much help. He would have had to have hired probably a full-time person to do the things that I was doing. So either way, we needed to protect ourselves and our future with life insurance.
Yeah. And did
And
that
it's like
did that happen as soon as he was diagnosed, or did you have to wait?
to get the money. No, you don't get it here until they pass. But like with our policy, you got like a few thousand immediately to help cover funeral expenses and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you got the rest of it like a month later.
Yeah. I think it
And
depends on the policy here.
yeah. Yeah, so I'm sure who it's with and all that matters, but even if you know it's coming, you can make do.
Yeah.
You can be 3 months late on something, on a
Yeah.
payment before you're here, you can until you like
Yeah. Yeah.
you're not gonna lose everything in 3
Mhm.
months, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. So was it like tricky when he was ill because he wasn't going to be able to do all the things that he used to for that year that he was ill?
Oh, yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, we had amazing help that worked for the company already, and he basically took over. I'm not looking back, I'm not really sure how he did it. And we also had friends that stepped in and tried to, like, help him. We
Mhm.
had friends that stepped in and worked for free for our company just so we could keep it afloat through the hardest parts. But yeah, it was rough. I mean, things like I said, like the scaling down started happening because he was so sick. So the, 50, 60 hours per week of work for our crew turned into like a day or two a week for one guy. And so it came down and that's is still where it's at, but it's okay.
Mhm.
It's not a problem. But yeah, it was. It was really, really rough, and he was the decision maker, and so even though he was sick, he wasn't fully aware of that, about how, like, compromised he was, and so he was still making decisions, and I was not allowed to make decisions. So, like, it was like I had to, like, sit back and and watch, and then try to fix everything once he had passed away. He was such an incredible manager. He was an incredible entrepreneur. He was an incredible people person. Like, everybody loved him. Like, and so watching him start making bad decisions was like terrible. It was just
Yeah.
like, man, not to mention I'm going to have to put the pieces back together. But also, like, it was so sad because he was so sharp, so smart, so good at everything. And then having to watch that was pretty terrible.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're remarried.
Hmm.
It feels a little bit of a to go straight to that after you've just
It's
said that
okay.
about your late husband. Yeah, so how did that come about?
Very unexpectedly. So I knew that, being in my early 30s, I knew there were going to be options for me to date and remarry if I wanted to, but I didn't want to. I was like, this was not a good experience the first time.
Yeah.
Like, and so I'm gonna just like not do that again. And so it was completely off my radar. I had like a couple prayers, I think, where I was just feeling really lonely. And I was just like, oh God, like if you could, like, I want somebody really great. Like, if that's possible, like, I want that again. Like, I want somebody so amazing, like kind of going through that. But then I would be like, nah, actually, like, not like I didn't mean it, but like the next day I'd be like, no, I really don't want that. And so I went through that. Also, when around the time he passed, I made a list of 30 things that were non-negotiables in another relationship. Because I'd always seen like these like widows that like they just snatch up the first person that comes by because they're lonely. And I
Hmm.
was like, ew, I don't want to do that. And so I was like, I want to make sure that I'm clear on what I want. And so I made a list of 30 requirements. And I was like, okay, so this way, if I get like flattered, like some like really like rich hunk comes by and I'm like flattered, I can be like, let's check the list and see if you actually measure up or if I'm just like lonely and eager to be in a relationship. And so I went ahead and made my list and like didn't look at it again because I was just like not even like thinking about that. But then I was out on a job with the guys because after I took over the company, I really didn't know what we did. I knew like what like how to describe it, but I'd never seen it. And so I went out on the job with the guys and he was there. He being Bo, the one I'm married to now. And I saw him and I turned around and got back in the truck because I was like, I don't know what is happening to me right now because I'm very confident. I don't have any problem talking to people. And I was just going to like walk up there and meet him and be like, I'm JoBeth. Nice to meet you. Like I talked to him on the phone twice um, to orchestrate the job, like to get things lined up. But then when I saw him, I was just like, nope, not today. And so I went and got back in my vehicle and I had told him I was going to be with my crew, and he messaged me later and he was like, were you with your crew today? And I was just like, yeah, I was. I was like, you look busy. So I just thought we'd meet another time, which is a total lie. He was not busy. He was just standing there. But I was just like, I can't. And I didn't know what was happening in my body because it was almost like a repulsive feeling because when you're married, right? If you had feelings for another person, that would be
Yeah.
very wrong.
Yeah.
That would be betrayal. And even though I knew I was free to date, to remarry, to do whatever I wanted to, logically it made sense, but my body didn't know. My body wasn't on the same page.
Yeah.
And
You weren't
so
ready yet.
I was like, what the heck? And so anyways, I went and got back in my vehicle and I was like, yeah, you looked busy. But I had a meeting with him the next week. And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna have to face this guy. And I don't really want to. And at that time I didn't know what was happening. I just felt sick and was just like, no, 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 no. But it was one of those things that was just undeniable. He very much felt like a soulmate really quick. I'm talking like it's very weird, but even before I had that first meeting with him, I felt very strongly that I would marry him. It was just one of those things. I saw him and it was over. And I didn't eat for 5 days. I couldn't eat. I felt so sick just because I was like, I don't think people in my life are ready for this. That
Hmm.
was probably the biggest thing. And then dating is just awkward.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much that's uncomfortable about it, and I just didn't want to do that. I was like, "Man, I'm just getting my feet under me. Like, this is like I feel good. I feel confident. Like, I'm doing so good. I don't want to add anybody into my life." My kids had already told me that they wanted me to date at this point, that they wanted to have a dad again, that they enjoyed having a dad, and I was like, "I'm gonna have to date, and that's gonna be really awkward for you guys." And they're like, "Yeah, we know, but, like, we understand that you have to do that if we want to have a family again." And I was like, "Oh, gross. Ugh, like, why do I have to be like, like, I don't wanna do this." So anyways, and then shortly after that, I met Beau, and I was just like, "Oh, dang it." Like, this could have held off longer. I don't know that I was necessarily, like, ready. I think the physical response that I had would tell you that I wasn't. But also, like, he is my person, and he has come along beside me in such a beautiful way of just being like, "Okay, she's grieving." I'll always grieve my husband,
Yeah.
and as a therapist, you know that, like, you
Yeah.
don't, like it's not something that there's seasons of it being really bad, there's chapters, but, like, I still have days. I mean, we're 2.5 years down the road, and I still have days where I'm just like, "Did that really happen? Is he really dead?" Like, just this sick feeling, and so for him to come in and to be like, "Yeah, I know you're grieving another man that you loved and that you would still be with if he hadn't passed away. I can still come along beside you and love you and be supportive and understanding and basically just be this, like, best friend and supporter and lover, like, of just he's just been so great." And so once I realized, like, who this person was, like, I knew I was having these feelings, and I actually showed a picture of him to one of my best friends, and her first words were, "You're gonna marry him." And I
Wow.
was like, "Well," this was when we were not talking, nothing. She asked me a question about how work was going. I was like, "Yeah," I was like, there's this guy," and I showed her a picture. I'm like, he's one of the guys we coordinate with or whatever." And she was like, "Oh, you're gonna marry him." And we weren't even talking. And I was like, "Oh," when she said that, I was like, "Yeah, I know."
How
But
bizarre.
he has just been he has been the best decision that I've ever made, aside from my kids, because I did have some decision making and welcoming them into our family, but
Yeah.
he's just been a gift, and has just come along beside me so beautifully. And yeah, it's wonderful. I didn't go searching for him, and I know it's like every woman's dream to have this happen, and I'm fully aware of that, and am so grateful for it. But he just appeared, and it's
Sounds
been
lovely.
wonderful. It is. I can't even, like I thought guys like him were just, like I don't know. I think when I saw people who had relationships like I'm in now, I think that I thought there was probably another side to the story that we weren't seeing. Like,
Yeah.
like, "They look so happy, he probably beats her at night." Like or, "They look so happy, I wonder if he has a girlfriend."
Yeah.
Like, but, like, it really is just this genuine, authentic love that I didn't know existed. And when you go through deep grief and tragedy, you love differently. So it's a level of love that I get to have for him that I wasn't able to tap into the first time
Yeah.
that I was married.
Yeah, I was gonna say, was it different? But yeah, you've answered my question before I asked it. But of course it's gonna be different because it's with someone different. But yeah. But does he take on the heavy work then? I know you said like it's different in terms of you don't want to be left with not knowing how to do things now, but how do you manage those tasks between you?
Yeah. So, like, I wanted him to know up front that I didn't need him. I was like, "I don't need you." Okay. Like, I don't need you for anything. I can do it on myself because I didn't want him to think that that's why he was coming into my life. I didn't want him to think that that's why I was desiring a future with him because, like, literally, like, I could probably get anybody to help me if I wanted it. I just want him to know, like, I'm, like, genuinely, like, I'm obsessed with you. Like, it has nothing to do with the fact that you can lift heavy things and run equipment.
But it helps.
But it really helps. He does almost everything. And I fill in the gaps. So when he's really busy, if I need to go do something like feed the cows, like if I need to go do that, I'll do that. But mostly he doesn't. I don't have any desire to do it. It's not like this is my passion,
Yeah.
helping people through grief and all that, being a mother to my kids, making sure we have food in the house, things like that really important to me. Um, you know, doing the outside man work just to prove that I can.
Yeah.
No, I'm not into that.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. So I've got a husband who does a lot, like in the house. He does the housework. I run the business mainly. He comes in every now and again, but he takes care of all the stuff that he cooks. He does the shopping and all of that stuff. And like, if my car runs out of washer fluid for the windscreen, he'll fill it up and stuff like that. And I can do it. I just don't want to. So he does it.
Yeah. And
He's a
listen,
bit like that.
if something happens to him, you can learn how to do everything.
Yeah.
I recommend being in the know, know where your keys are at, know where your important
Yeah.
documents are at. But yeah, that's partnership.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll help each other. We've got different skills and strengths and interests. So, yeah, he's really tidy and I'm really messy. So I make a mess and he tidies up.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So there was something that you wanted to promote, wasn't there?
Yeah, so I do grief work. I think that everybody needs somebody to help them through the process. It doesn't matter who you are. Like if you're a therapist yourself or if you are just some really high achieving person, like you can expedite, you can make the process easier by utilizing a therapist or a coach or somebody. And so that's what I do. I am a coach. I am not a therapist, but I walk people through grief and work with them to heal their broken hearts. I take you from a place of being like in shambles to being okay. Like that's the jump that I want to make with people. And then, if you want to get to thriving, I can take you there too. But like the first step is always just to be okay again. And
Yeah.
so I do groups and one-on-one where we go through an 8-week program of healing. And I use the grief recovery method, which is an evidence-based program for healing. That means that they have done the research on it and people who go through the program feel better when they're done with it. And it's heavy in education because we're not taught anything about grief.
No.
We watch our parents grieve maybe, or we just do what feels natural. And doing what feels natural in our societies that we live in is probably not natural. And so really give you the tools and the space and everything you need that, like I said, has been scientifically proven to work to get you to a place where you're okay then again, and you can kind of start to move forward. So if anybody's interested in that, we're going to post some links, right, to
Yeah, yeah.
that so that people can reach out. And also I offer like free calls, and I don't want you to be like, oh, it's free, like, and just like jump in. But if like I think that you one step you can take, just one like small step, is to book a call and be like, where do I go from here? Because I'm not always the answer. And I will tell you that right now, because I've had clients that needed to go to rehab because their drug and alcohol use had gotten so bad during
Yeah.
this time that grief work was beyond what they needed to work on. They needed to go to rehab first. There's also people who need to be in therapy and coaching isn't right for you. And so like it's just kind of in 30 minutes after you tell me your story and what you want, I can really get a clear picture of what the right path is for you. And so I think that's something that everybody should utilize and take that first step in getting better.
That sounds really useful resource. So thank you for sharing and thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your experience. It sounds like you've been through quite a lot, but the fact that we could laugh about cows and tractors and stuff and guns is
Who knew it was going to go there?
no, I didn't know. Like I thought it was going to be quite serious, but yeah. So yeah, so thank you for coming on.
And thanks for having me.
Hi everyone, it's Kelly, and today I want to talk about something that's coming up a lot, both in the news and in my counselling work, and that is cancellation, or more specifically, why cancellation hits women in particular. And I'm not just talking about being called out online, although that is part of it. I'm talking about being excluded, about being silenced, about being ostracised, because whether it happens in your work in your workplace, your friendship circle, or your community, or on social media, it really does leave a mark. And for women, that can cut really deeply. Because we're raised to keep the peace, aren't we? We're raised to be agreeable, to go along with things even if it feels off. So when a woman steps out of line and she speaks up and says something unpopular or challenges the dominant narrative, then the response can be quite swift and harsh. But it's not just about disagreement. This is actually rejection. It's isolation and it's shunning. And I've seen it time and time again, and I've seen how devastating it can be, and it's happened to me as well. Because when a woman is cancelled, she doesn't just lose her platform, she can lose her livelihood, her confidence and her sense of identity, and she might even doubt herself, question her values and withdraw from the world. I've worked with women who've gone through this. They're brave, they're intelligent, they're principled women who suddenly find themselves cut off, misrepresented and alone, and the grief's really real. They have anxiety, they feel shame, the fear of speaking up again. It's really heavy. So if this is you, or if it ever has been, I want you to know that you are not the problem. You're not crazy, and you're not alone. And I offer private women-led counselling for women who are navigating the emotional impact of cancellation, rejection, or just feeling shut out for speaking the truth. It's confidential, supportive space where we can talk about what really happened, not the story people told you about. Not the story people told about you, but what you experienced. And we work together towards rebuilding your sense of self, your voice, and your power. Because cancellation isn't the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something far more authentic and grounded. And if this resonates with you, I'd love to invite you to reach out or book a free consultation, because you'll find everything on my website, kellyoliverdugal.co.uk. And I'm going to put the link in the description. So thanks for listening. And remember, your voice matters, and keep speaking, even if it shakes.